Hey guys, what's going on? So today we're going to be looking at 3 stock airplanes, all of which you can find in either the vehicle assembly building or the space plane assembly building. So all these are just preloaded, pre-made by the game developers. They're super easy to fly, and all of them fly pretty well. Obviously, if the developers are going to put them out there as kind of stock planes for people that can't build them, they should be easy to fly. So that's the first one right there, the Dove. It flies fairly easy. It has a Rapier engine on the back, which can convert between air breathing and oxidized liquid fuel consuming engines. So, I mean, you don't really need to use the other one for that. But you can see by my great maneuvers, it's a pretty easy airplane to fly. So we're going to land that one down, and then we'll talk about it in one sec. And beautiful touchdown. Yep, there she is. Alright guys, so if you take a look at the spacecraft, first of all, on the bottom left you can see those 2 buttons I pressed, one for the center of mass and one for the center of lift. So these are the 2 most important things we need to look at whenever we make an aircraft, because we want the center of lift behind the center of mass by a small margin. You never, absolutely ever want it in front of the center of mass, or else whenever you get good speed and you cut, your plane will jerk and try to turn itself around. So always remember to put your center of lift behind your center of mass. That's super important. So we'll talk a little bit more. Since all these planes are familiar, everything will be pretty easy and pretty similar to the one before it. So this one right here is the Osprey. So the Osprey is another one of these planes that's super easy to fly. If you look at it from the top, which I'm sure we'll get that view in a second, you'll see that the wing surfaces are very large for such a small aircraft, and they're fairly close to the center. Whenever we look at it in the vehicle assembly building, you'll see that the center of lift is actually very close to the center of mass. And since that's the case, you can watch me take some of these really tight turns, and it turns on a dime. Look at that. I mean, this thing you can get some serious G's out of. If you watched my video on knocking out Tourist with G-Force, it's very similar to what you do whenever you make this Osprey aircraft. You put your center of lift really close to your center of mass, still behind it, but close, and then you can turn very sharply. So it's really maneuverable, and it's not hard to lift up off the ground on takeoff at all. So you can see the landing's fairly easy too. Now one thing you should look at is how close the wheels are together in the back. That's really important also. So if you look at this one, pull up center of mass, pull up the center of lift. They're close, but the center of lift has to be behind the center of mass. So also you can see here how close the wheels, the back wheels, are to being in line with the center of mass. Now the closer the wheels are together, the more unstable the aircraft's going to be, especially on turning. So that's really important. If you start to veer off a little bit on the runway, then you can start to get into a little bit of trouble. So typically you don't want to adjust your wing surfaces that much. You can see I'm barely touching them, and my center of lift is going crazy. So normally you just leave your elevons and you leave all your wings that change whenever you press the buttons to steer. Just let those do the changing. So here's a propeller plane that I made. This one's not a stock aircraft. I made this one, which is obviously why it's a little wobbly, but we do get off the ground. And now prop planes are a little bit different, and I wanted to show this one because it's kind of reversed as far as landing gears go. So normally the landing gears for all the other ones, and I'm fairly certain for almost all the stock airplanes that they provide, it's 1 gear in the front that steers and then 2 in the back. So these planes are a little bit different. This kind of Mustang-esque fighter plane, kind of old war era, because they have 2 in the front. Now the 2 in the front also are a lot closer to the ground, which you could see in takeoff. So they hit whatever you're landing on first, and then you slowly slow down, and then eventually your back one lands. So these, no matter the plane, the center of mass and the relationship it has with the center of lift are going to be the same. Center of lift is behind the center of mass. Just remember that, and your aircraft will almost always work fine. Now landing, however, you want your landing gears very close to the center of mass. My 2 front landing gears are right in front of the center of mass, So that's why the plane stays almost perfectly balanced on them until it pretty much stops right at that last second. So mine are probably a little too close, but if you look at it here, yep, there's my center of mass and my landing gears are right in front of it. Now if you do the other way, and you can go back and look at how the other planes are done, their wheels are right behind the center of mass. It all depends where exactly you want the weight and how you set the spring and the damper so that it'll absorb that. The last plane that we're going to look at is the Mallard. This one is also a stock plane, and it is also very lightweight. If you notice on the plane, the first 3 or 4 compartments are all just cargo bays, so there's nothing in there, there's no fuel to weigh it down. So it's a very light plane, it's very easy to get off the ground, and I figured I would launch from the other airport just to show you how versatile it is and to get out to the sea a little bit quicker, because something else that we're going to look at is sea landings. So this aircraft holds all the exact same details that we were just talking about. The most important one, that your center of lift is behind your center of mass, applies to literally every plane. That's very important. And you can see it's all the exact same. There's the hollow inside, that's why it weighs very little and you can get it off the ground so quick. Another thing I want to mention is you can see that tail fin is very far back on the plane. So whenever you're lifting off, part of your tail fin's responsibility is as you speed up, you pull back on it and it lowers your tail, and your wheel acts as the fulcrum, and it kind of puts you on a balance like a seesaw, and it forces your back down, almost like that right there, except we weren't on wheels, we were in the water. So it's still very similar for in the water. You just got to keep in mind that you're going through a liquid and you're not just rolling on something. So you normally need a little more of an oomph to get you up. So obviously you can see how lightweight this plane is. This is a very big plane to be doing barrel rolls on, but it's still not too bad. So we're gonna go ahead and land this, and I mean, just like look at how much it turns. It's very lightweight. That's another thing. If you're having trouble with your plane, especially on liftoff and landing, try to cut back a little bit of the weight. All these air-breathing engines are really effective. They're really efficient, and they'll get you really far with not a lot of liquid fuel. So if you're having problems lifting off, just think about that. You can see it's the exact same. Our center of lift is behind our center of mass. It's pretty much right on it, so it doesn't really matter. But it's not in front. That is very important. And it has that wing surface so far in the back on the tail that it really doesn't matter that the center of lift is right on, because that wing surface in the back does a really good job at keeping the front forward and the back behind it. Just never want that center of lift in front. So you can also see how turning some things laterally instead of up and down will also affect the center of lift. So now we're going to look at a little glimpse into the future here, because this is a propeller plane. It is also stock. And now it takes advantage of controllers, which I'm not entirely sure how to use yet. I know they just kind of affect the relationship between parts. And anytime you look at the center of lift for something with propellers, it's going to be a little weird, just because propellers don't really do well in the system when it kind of guesses your center of lift. But anyways, guys, that's what we're going to be looking at in the next video. So just remember, center of lift is behind the center of mass. That's almost all you need. Just watch your weight. There's a few key factors. Just look at the stock planes if you really want to know. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, and saw yous out.